Hello, and welcome to the Tony McClelland Show. It's Critical Reflections with your critical friend, and today we are continuing part 2 with the fabulous Michael David Chapman. We are here going to be talking about how you share your story for good. Last week, if you joined us, you would have known that he shared about how he had a baby, was moving house in the middle of a divorce, and he lost his job as well, and how he found salvation in reading the Bible, and his faith saved the day. So I'm going to bring Michael in, and we're going to get started straight away. So welcome, Michael. How are you?
I'm good. I didn't have the baby, just to be on the record. I contributed. Today is just going to be anything goes.
Okay, so I thought you had the baby.
Anybody's going to say anything, but go ahead. How was your weekend?
My weekend was absolutely fine. So let's just.
I'm in sunny Florida. I'm in sunny Florida, and back home, my kids are in snowy, soon to lose power, New Hampshire.
Yes, I was just going to say, because last week, for anyone that was watching, they would have remembered that he said, I'm going to be in Florida. And I thought, oh, he's going to be on the beach. There's going to be waves splashing around you with brown, lovely golden sand. And here you are, Michael. And there's me, in sunny UK, all wrapped up warm and everything. So, hey,
I'm actually not going to the beach. Can you believe that? But because I'm in this, I could, but that's just not on the agenda this week. Is that terrible to go to Florida and not go to the beach? Is that that's probably criminal in some people's economy.
Well, you know what? You've got to do what you got to do. Okay. Yeah. So if you are watching, because I know a few of you are, drop in, say hi, let us know where you are, and we will make sure that we give you a shout out. And we have the fabulous Rachel Beck. Yes. Hey, Rachel, how are you? Fabulous lady. And you are amazing, and sending lots of love to you. So thank you so much for joining us. I think there's a few other people on, but they're a little bit shy at the moment. But we will continue. So, Michael.
Yes.
Last week we spoke about adversity and some of the trials and tribulations that were going on around you, and how, you kind of found some salvation in the Bible, and found peace. Why are you smiling?
Because I'm always smiling.
This is a very serious subject that we're talking about here.
It makes me smile. That's the whole point.
I know.
Maybe more people would read that book if they found a way to smile about it. It's we could rabbit hole why people don't smile, because it's rammed down people's throats. So yes,
absolutely. And I was just teasing anyway. So we've got Melody as well from Massachusetts, always joining us here. Thank you for joining, Melody.
She's about to get hit with a ton of snow. Melody, tell us how the situation is when you get this message. Tell us how the situation is there in Massachusetts with the snow.
Absolutely. And we've also got Trevor, who is in the UK. Hopefully we won't be getting any snow. I think that it was forecast, but I must admit, I woke up this morning feeling as if it was on its way. So thanks for joining us, Trevor. Lovely to have you here, and get those questions ready for Michael. So we spoke about your adversity and how you overcame some of that.
Yeah.
And we touched upon how what helped you a little bit as well was, sharing your story. But for those of you that didn't join us last week, do you want to just do a minute of a recap, Michael, of where we were last week, just so that we can pick up from there and continue? Do you want to just
at a very high level? I'll be 50 next month. And I spent from 26 to about 40 racing through life. I had a really terrific mother. I had no father. And the one thing that she did really well with her boys was she had us on the front row of a Baptist church, which was religion. But what was born out of that was a relationship with God. That by the time I hit the 40 and I had been through some job losses, some divorces, the loss of a child, 4 relocations, and the realization that I had probably done 20 plus years, I don't know how many years of decades of undiagnosed depression and other issues. At 40, it all came crashing down. And all I had in that moment was my faith and that book. And I was isolated. So there's the high level recap.
Wow. And it all came crashing down at that
Pretty much
time. And so at that time as well, you decided that really what you were going to do was start sharing your story. Is that right, Michael?
Right before that, I went on a journey for about 18 months, almost 2 years, with a therapist, a coach, and a mentor to really understand just how messed up it was on my worldview, specifically around relationships. And so what came out of that was a lot of writing. My therapist taught me how to write, much like, this is why it was a Bible thing, much like David did in the Psalms. I didn't write Psalms, but when you read the Psalms, it's pretty hard to read that and not realize this guy that we call King David was lamenting and complaining and bitching and celebrating and doing all the things we do, specifically in this case as a man, but he did it on paper. She taught me how to do that as a part of my therapy. And so what came out of that was 2,500 plus journals that later, yes, when I got on LinkedIn in 2017 to look for a position, I started not to share the journals, although I've done that, share some of the learnings from the journaling.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's really great. And on that note, let's just say hi to Marcia. So lovely to have you join us, and just let us know where you are as well, Marcia. I know you're a regular, but it's always good to kind of have you here and joining in and get those questions ready for Michael. So you started to share the journaling, but why social media, Michael? Of all the places that you may want to share and help, because you talked last week of your therapy as well, didn't you?
Call it serendipitous, call it whatever you want. To me, it was a God thing. In the tangible, I got back on LinkedIn to look for a job. I literally gave notice in August of 17, and I came home to look for a job like most people do. LinkedIn at that point was a place to find a job, find talent, and read a boring article on Forbes. That's it. And I had noticed a real change in the feed. You had people like Oleg Vizhnopolsky, Bridget Hyacinth, all kinds of people sharing about leadership, Peter Drucker type stuff. And I had a lot of that stuff to share. And so I stepped into a space that just seemed to be a right place. Little did I know that LinkedIn was really trying to push viewership and membership. And so I stepped into what's considered that golden year right after they were acquired, built relationships in those spaces, and then it just took off. I started sharing every day, sometimes twice a day.
So can I just ask you, did you initially do that to help yourself or because you wanted to help others?
I think it was, if I can use the word pregnant, there were so many ideas on the inside of me. I was bursting at the seams around leadership topics that I was not able to effectively use in that role that I walked away from, because the guy I worked for, in part, not in whole, was toxic. Now, I built a very positive subculture of men and women under and around, I don't like the word under, but around me, in spite of him, because I reported I was second in the company. But there were a lot of other things I couldn't do around hiring decisions and other things in the sales organization side of the sales side, because I ran the sales service and operational side, that it was a natural thing to share. And when I saw other people doing it, sharing about leadership, and it just was natural for me to do that.
And obviously you're not employed at this point as well. So you haven't got an employer breathing down your neck saying you can't share this or you can't share that.
Well, I was employed. Remember, I gave notice and I negotiated a 4-month runway.
Okay.
So I went to him and said, let's be clear. I went to him and said, listen, I'm leaving, but I want to look for a job. I have a non-compete with you. You can either pay that and he said, no, why don't you just stay on and find your replacement? So from August to December, I did have a job. I was employed and I was looking for a job in full view.
Okay. That's good. Thank you so much. So Melody is just saying God is always with us, just waiting for us to really connect with him. It's a personal relationship that matters, not religion per se. Thank you so much, Melody. And has also contributed and said, LinkedIn is a great community platform. I've met so many incredible people here. Absolutely. And we've met you, Melody, and you two are incredible, as with all of you that are joining us, Rachel, Trevor, and Marcia too. So yeah, so let's continue on this little journey. It sounds a bit cliche, doesn't it, Michael? But at 40, everything
What else are you gonna call it? Yeah.
Well, this is it. But everything came crashing down at 40. And so would you say that you kind of had a regroup or a rethink about your direction? Where did you want to go at that point? What
well,
kind were you looking for?
I recognized that, I needed to, on the personal side of my life, I needed to practice what some people call surrender, but I learned a different word, submission. I needed to submit to a journey of understanding why I found myself in that position, professionally and personally.
Okay. So can I just hold you there for a minute? Because that's really important, isn't it? For people to kind of understand, why am I here? That's whole self-awareness piece.
Yeah. I mean, it's like Andy Stanley. I always use him as an example. I mean, he talks about when you're coming out of a relationship, bad or good, whatever, he says, stay out of bed, stay out of debt, and clean out your closet.
Yeah.
Stay out of bed, stay out of debt, clean out your closet. The clean out your closet part was the mentor, coach, therapist thing that, I got to a point where I'd done a lot of work, and it was about applying it,
No, so that's really, really good. So, Michael, as you know, I'm going to ask you, so just out of what you've described and just you touched on the starting to share, what would you say to people that are watching this back or listening in now in terms of sharing their story? Do you think sharing stories is for everybody, or sharing an experience? Is it something that you'd recommend, or is there a way that you should really kind of go about it? If you could just touch on that briefly, that would be really great.
There's two roads there. You really have to decide what story you want to tell on the other side of sharing your story, right? I mean, I'm a little bit, no surprise here, I'm a little bit critical on the personal branding energy industry experts that come out and tell job seekers, just share your story, it's your LinkedIn, yeah. Your company doesn't own this, blah, blah, blah. It's very one-dimensional. And oftentimes, not always, they're selling a course. They're not thinking about, hey, that person may not get a job. They're not trying to be an entrepreneur. They're not trying to be the next so-and-so on LinkedIn celebrity, right? So there's a cautionary tale there, yes, but sharing your story in appropriate channels, whether it be on social media or it be at a care group, is important, because when we share our story, there's so much, there's something liberating about that. There's something empowering about that. So no, to be clear, I do not recommend that someone do what I did on my first video, where you take a cell phone and you look down on it in your Honda and you say, hey, today is the day I fired myself, and you put it on social. I don't recommend that for anyone unless you're willing to live the unintended and intended consequences of that.
Absolutely. Living the consequence of that. Exactly. And I think that when you're starting to share your story, part of that sharing is the private sharing in your journaling, which is between you and your journal as well, isn't it? So would you recommend for people to kind of, just start writing it out?
You have thoughts every day. Anyone listening to this, you have thoughts every day. You have thousands of journals a week that go between your two ears, even if it's one sentence. And so this, when we're working with clients, and, one thing I talked about in Clubhouse, how would you start your content journey? It isn't the next app. It isn't, get us this app, and you need LinkedIn Live, and you need this, all the things that come later, right? Yeah. You need to capture your thoughts every day. Get in the discipline of capturing your thoughts, either on a notepad, driving down the road, clicking that button on your your steering wheel and caption it through a Siri or a voice note. So many of the journals and the content. I've got a blog I'm putting out this week around forgiveness, and it's a story this time. It's a long, I usually go short form. It's going to be an article. And I wrote this, I put the initial thoughts down 7 years ago, and it's just now a blog. I mean, I have thousands and thousands of one-liners and journals in my phone. And so that's the discipline.
Absolutely. That's great. That's really good. And I think there is this feeling of who's going to listen to my story, who's actually interested.
Who
but
cares?
The fact is that everybody's got a story to tell. And even when I started sharing my own story, you know, it was really about my own experiences, and I would just put little tidbits out there. I wasn't necessarily concerned whether people were interested in a particular piece or not. And funnily enough, people did start messaging me, and so it just kind of grew into something slightly different. So let's hear from Matthew Warboys. Thank you so much for joining us.
Amen.
So many nuggets of wisdom here, my friend. Thank you so much for sharing. Absolutely, Michael.
Yeah, that's right.
So much wisdom, and most of the time you keep it up here. You know, let's get it all out. Let's get it out. So we've got Azra. For inspiration, you need to share. Thank you so much for joining us again. Let us know where you are joining us from too. And when sharing your story, it needs to have a why of it can help someone else by the insight it contains. This is from Melody. And yes, why is very important. Thank you so much. So you started sharing your story, you chose journaling, aspects of it you were putting out on social media. And did you have any expectation as to what was going to happen?
I really thought, you know, this is so, I don't mind sharing this. This is because I think everyone admits this to themselves or later, but you know, when you start sharing your thoughts, especially just go like leadership or sales, organizational leader, whatever it is, you think you're really smart. And you think people, in some cases, people really want to hear it on a level that it's more than they do. And don't get me wrong, I'm not pulling anybody back. We're just saying, you know, there's this element when you put out my first post got 100 views. No one cared. And it was really good stuff. There were really good leadership anecdotes that were coming from the belly of real pain. But you can't let that deter you. So yes, I put out some of my best stuff early on LinkedIn, more on leadership than anything, sales leadership stuff, because I was still working at the company.
Yeah, no, that's good, because when I started putting stuff out, mine was really around what I had learned from my experience that day or something that was going on. So and I know that I started following you at that point, I think, when you were starting to share your journey about being, you know, a single father and having children and those responsibilities around that. And that was really kind of and I think that people, when they're sharing as well, Michael, they have to determine the difference between private and personal. What's private and what's personal? Because once it's out there, you can't get it back, really, can you? You know, it's out there.
I don't like people who try to police that, but I've been guilty of that. Like, I've put out snide comments. I mean, I've got people that don't like me like anybody else, but don't, because I come in with a quip, a hit from the hip quip. So we all have a little bit of that, but at the end of the day, okay, I would say this, you know, just be prepared. Yeah. There are always intended and unintended consequences. When we do this to the world, when we open up our heart, there's always an intended or unintended consequence.
I like the way you opened up your heart. Can you do that again, Michael?
Open up your heart.
Okay. So is this the bit where we get a little song now?
Oh, God.
Yeah. No. So behind the scenes, before we came live, Michael was singing and whistling and singing. So I said to him, I'm going to put him on the spot and he needs to do some singing. So as he's opened up his heart right now, I think it's time for a song.
Is there a song about that? Open.
Just the one that you were singing earlier on is absolutely fine.
I'm going to sing one line.
4.
Yeah, I was singing. So this is the.
Are you getting shy?
I'm always shy.
Okay, so if you're watching now, let's make some trouble on Michael. If you're watching and you want to sing a song, then let us know. Off you go.
Come on, let it go. There you go. That's it. Everybody knows that song. That's all you get. You got to let it go. It's so funny. That song was sent to me by somebody that was telling me to let go of something that I didn't want to let go of years ago when it came out. So I was listening to it. I was listening to it when I was writing what I'm going to put out this week. So it's in my head.
So
just let it be. There you go. There's two.
So just let it go. Just let it be.
That's my only. The only time you ever find me doing something on social singing. Maybe there's something maybe on my Facebook. That's it.
Okay. Well,
and the reason is I can't tell if I'm flat or not.
But the thing about it is, it doesn't matter whether you're flat or not.
Nobody gives a rat. See what I'm saying? No one cares.
Yeah, but Michael, you opened up your heart and you became vulnerable and you gained.
So, I can't hit that by heart. Listen to your heart.
Okay, see, now I can't settle you down now, can I? Okay, you've gone.
Yeah, now see, you did it. Yeah, you just can't put me back in the bottle.
No, see, that's just it. But what I was going to say to you is, you know, just tell us the lyrics of those words, and share how you relate to those words and what it is in terms of what we're talking about.
Just let it go. Let it be. Listen. Now I got to say it. Just let it go. He's saying, it sounds like, I think it's James Bay. I think what he's doing, he's talking about, I think it's a breakup song.
Mm-hmm.
And he's saying, hey, just let it go. Just let it be.
But that we can apply that.
Why don't you be you? Why don't you be you? Leave it. No, he goes, just let it go. Just let it be. Leave it to the breeze.
Okay.
Which sounds kind of hard if you really love someone and they're saying, just let me go. But and then he says, why don't you be you and you be, why don't you be you and I'll be me, or something like that, whatever. In the context of what I'm using, just let it go, is this part, and I'm going to be talking about this where, and it's around the fist and unforgiveness, and how we when we have something that happens in our life that reminds us of something we haven't forgiven us, we grasp onto unforgiveness. That's the context I'm using it. So just let it go part's what I'm holding on. But yeah, he's talking about, man, just let it go, dude.
And can I just ask, Michael, so how easy have you found it to let things go? I mean, the anguish that you had around that whole situation, how you saw things differently. How easy was it for you to let things go?
I'm going to give you two things here. Professionally, and I need to share this too. I have a whole letter I wrote the guy before I quit. I had this, when you read it, you're going to think it's like a pen pal letter that you write to an idol when you're 15. It's so childlike. I'm on my knees begging this guy to allow me and others at the company to reverse the direction of the company. That was really easy to let. It was easy to let go of that relationship after I poured my heart, because him and his consultant friend laughed in my face over email. And I'm going to share that. In my professional life, that was easy, because now it's your last salvo. It's it. But in my personal life, I didn't do well at letting go of that marriage, because, people get married. You're supposed to stay married. Good guys don't stand around. If something's on fire, they go get the water hose. I mean, I thought a good guy was trying to save it.
Okay.
But it was a dead corpse of a relationship that I couldn't see. And so what came out of that was a different Michael who, found himself needing people on a level that I needed years ago, that I finally found. So there was good that came out. So I didn't handle that well, but what came out of that was somebody that could learn to ask for help, learn to take a plunge.
And learn how to help himself too.
Help myself, process things, and say things like if somebody now rejects me, if somebody rejects me that I care about, I let it come right in. That dart, I don't do any of that, because that's bullshit. That's bullshit. I'll just say it. I'll let it impact me right heart center, and I'll feel it. But I don't sit there. And that makes, depending on how close they were to me, I'll let it do it. But I won't deny it. But I have learned the skill of how to take the arrow out, the blood.
And you've learned the skill of telling everybody about it too.
Well, before I tell anybody about it, I usually have a couple of friends that I go to. I mean, I've got a really good, my best friend that I'm down here with, he's at a softball game right now. You know, he's more empirical about it. He knows how to ask me the right questions.
No, so that's really good. So let's just kind of capture where we are, and we'll get some feedback from a couple of others. So really what you've said is, in amongst everything that was going on, you know, you started sharing your story. It helped you, it helped others, and there was some ripples out of it. And you know, you started therapy, which helped as well. You recognized that it became easier to ask for help. You read the Bible and you became very familiar with that, and you found great comfort in that. Yeah. So am I going the right way? Yeah.
And then it was just a process of consistency. It was the go-to, you know, from the therapy and specifically the coaching. And then what I did in my faith life was the process of, in the morning, not from a legalistic, you should do it to be a better Christian kind of a guy thing. It was lifeline stuff. You know, so when people talk about getting up in the morning and meditating, that was, you know, put me in that slot. And then going to bed with that, hearing the words come out of someone's mouth around how God sees me, or the impressionistic understanding of how God sees me, was key to my recovery.
Also, one of the things as well that's happened in the rebirth of Michael, if you want to call it that, is that you now, I mean, I'm just referring to a post that you put out earlier on social media today, which was around, you know, taking time out for somebody that you just didn't even know. It was a complete stranger. Somebody asked you to just take a moment out. You took that moment and it made such a difference to them. It really impacted them so positively. And, you know, things like that you may not necessarily have done before, but you do now. So was that part of the rebirth of Michael? Would you say that you kind of worked out how you got there, and you've tried to kind of reverse some of that through some of the—
Yeah, and the way I would frame it for everyone, when men and women go through things where they think they lose everything that's important. I mean, not to minimize what I thought was important, but it's not everything. On the other side of that, you find a different level of humanity, right? You're more aware of the needs around you. You're not perfect. You're not perfectly virtuous. You're not, you know, always got $5 in your pocket to give to a homeless person. I'm not trying to paint that picture, but when you get a text from a friend in a country that just experienced a whatever size earthquake, and hey, would you just do this call? Sure. I mean, you're more willing, because you know what real law, you know what in your own economy you've been through losses, and so you're more willing to do that.
No, so that's good. That's good. And that's a really nice message there, Michael. So let's hear. So I think Melody was saying that let it go in relation to your singing, and MD, very nice. He liked your singing too. And Trevor has a contribution. It's a great platform, a good platform, sorry. And have made some great friends. The one thing I've learned is to believe in yourself. After losing your job, it's hard. It took me 3 years to get my confidence back, in that I mentor 45 people now. I think you mentioned this last week as well. And you put several articles out to believe in yourself. Companies need to follow up with people when they let others go. So that is a really good, they should really follow up with people. I know they do exit interviews, but that's at the time when you're leaving. Really, you need to be communicating throughout and before. So thank you so much for that contribution, Trevor. And we've got Melody. Go with the flow so life can happen through you instead of to you.
I don't like go with the flow as a means to live in denial, but go with the flow as a means to hold on to gratitude, hang on to the glass is always usually got something in it. Hang on to, I mean, you can go with the flow and not live in denial. A lot of times, and people say go with the flow.
I think that's knowing Melody. I think that's what Melody would be.
No, I know that's what she means. So I don't want to just give that thing, like, I'm more of a realist around, you can do both.
Yeah.
You know?
So, okay, Michael. So you started sharing your story. It helped you, it helped others. And so for a while, you were professionally helping people in helping single fathers. Is that right? you know, with their own traumas, their own experiences, as well as helping people to share their story on social. Is that right?
That's right. That's right.
Okay. So do you want to talk a little bit about what you were doing, where you went with the single father piece, and then we can talk
Well,
about.
I had some help with someone that helped me unpack sort of my journey and broke down my own journey into 7 parts. And then I turned that into a program. And so 7 parts has a key. All 7 parts of my program for men have one keyword and then some words that go with it. And I took that and turned it into an actionable, discernible, defined, metric-driven approach to helping a man go from whatever, broken, hooked on porn, I mean, who knows what, to breakthrough.
Okay.
To breakthrough. Yeah, to something they can measure. I mean, how do you measure, for example, I want to be a better husband? How do you measure that? How do you measure, I want to be a better leader? How do you measure, I want to be a better father and date my daughter? How do you measure that? Right. So I came up with a way to do that.
No, so that's good. So is that something that you still do now?
I don't really talk about it much. It's more word of mouth stuff.
Okay. Yeah. And something that you're drawn to rather than promoting.
And many times people don't go through the whole program because they get the breakthrough early. Usually, I mean, it starts with submission, and then it starts with accountability, and then there's an element of grieving. The third month is grieving. By the time we get to the grieving process, what happens is people either defect because that's where we're going to the stuff that's holding them back, or they really take off. Yeah, they take off because they oh my gosh, this thing that happened to me X years ago, this subsequent unforgiveness I have for my dad or whatever it is affected every single decision of my life, blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
Okay. And that's the time when you really want people to complete, really, isn't it? To actually complete the program, because then they're kind of have a whole sense of their self-awareness at that point, you know?
Yeah, pretty much.
So it's good. I kind of describe that as, you know, when you have something wrong, or, you know, and you go to the doctor and they give you some antibiotics and you only take 3 days out of the 7. It's almost as if because you feel better, you stop, you know, and then you realize that there's 4 days that are left. So you end up having to come back for the whole full course again. But that's how I kind of look at it. So let's see what Trevor has said. More men need to ask for help. Open up if it helps. You don't understand. You need to have loving God, but be true to yourself in talking to anyone, getting your feelings out. So I think you're just saying, talk up, really. Talk it out. It's not very easy, but I think that one of the things I would say is that how often do we say to people to reach out if you need something, but when we lead with compassion and care, we take responsibility to reach in too. So thank you so much, Melody and Trevor. So let's talk now, Michael, about sharing stories. So I know that you were really well known on LinkedIn, would you say, for helping people to share their stories. So how's that going? Is that something that you still do now?
Yeah, really more in spaces where, you know, people think there are no stories. I mean, for the last year and a half before the economic changes, we were trying to help people share more stories in the mortgage industry, the finance industry, and the VC industry. Because oftentimes those are seen as, you know, we can't talk about clients this, we can't talk about clients that. And I get that, but there's so many stories. I mean, all of those things, while it's could seem as some of that stuff is seen as commodities. I mean, like, hey, going to get a mortgage. I mean, what's sexy? What's exciting about that? Nothing, right? But it's affecting someone's life. Yeah. When someone buys a home for the first time, it's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, that's right.
Or they're buying a home later, you know, after a divorce, you know, whatever it is. So I enjoy that.
Yeah, so that's good. So you've gone from helping individuals per se to more companies.
Correct. Both.
Yeah. Okay, so that's good. So that's something that you've been doing, and you still do that now. Yeah, so people can reach out to you if there is a story that is sitting in there that needs sharing, and you'll help them to share it. Is that right?
Yeah, and everything, this whole idea of everyone's got a story is beyond the cliche of it.
Mm.
You know, you see it all the time. You see a lot of that, if you do anything like outside of social media where you go into like groups and, where you're in a group setting, you hear people share a story. It's really fascinating to be in that environment. That's where a lot of this came from. I mean, I did so much time before social media listening to other people's sad breakup stories as a part of my own. And when you hear that and you begin to not, because we all compare, but you really begin to think about that or maybe benchmark that against like, God, my life is this, but it ain't like that in terms of, how I was treated or not treated. It'll grow you a little bit. So what I'm saying is, where I'm going with this is, it's one thing. Okay, hey, share your story, personal branding, blah blah blah. We can talk about that. Everyone loves to talk about that, and I get that. But there's something empowering
Mm-hmm.
around your confidence, and I would say taking you to a level of confidence that you don't know you need because of what's coming around the corner in your life around sharing your story, whether you do it publicly or you do it on a blank sheet of paper, nobody ever sees it. It's something empowering because those words stare you back in the face and they clarify your purpose.
Okay.
They clarify your purpose. So you got to do it.
So that's a lovely message there. And I'm just going to ask you as we move to a conclusion now, Michael, are there any has anyone got any questions, first of all, for Michael in the last few minutes now? But Michael, I'm just going to ask, have you got a key message out of everything that we've talked about, your experiences and the sharing of stories and how that has kind of taken you into a new course of business, helping others to share their own stories and to
yeah, sure. This is good for anyone, but specifically men. Don't isolate. Don't isolate. It's intuitive. It's instinctive. It makes sense. We're wired that way. Of course, our world doesn't help that. I think it's getting better with more and more men that are willing to come out and share their story and willing to look vulnerable, look stupid, whatever, however you look weak when it's not weak. I mean, being weak is strong. Being vulnerable is attractive. In a relationship, vulnerability is sexy. All right. I can go on and on and on to tear down the paradigms that men and the BS that men hear growing up. Okay. Don't isolate, because isolated anybody, but isolated men, specifically in leadership positions, are scary people because they're accountable to no one but what goes on between here and here. That's number one. Number two, if you're battling known or unknown mental health issues, which you probably are, most people are, some kind of insecurity on some mild side to, in my case, it was depression and ongoing anxiety. It's progressive. This is important. It's progressive. Isolation is progressive, and those things are progressive. And while that sounds scary, what happens is it's affecting everyone in your life.
So Michael, I'm going to ask you now, because we're saying talk to somebody, reach out, get some help. How easy is it for people to do that? It's not very easy. So is it about talking to somebody, who you can really talk to, a friend, or write a note, perhaps maybe, I don't know.
It's usually not easy until people are in a state of pain. But before you get to the divorce or getting fired or the end of a bottle of, the next habit you've got, this is the thing. If you live in a life, I was having a conversation just yesterday with someone who lives in a self-sabotage. I'm talking about self-sabotage in this blog I'm putting out, or this LinkedIn article. And I said, this is profound. I said, usually self-sabotaging behaviors is linked to a belief that you're not worthy, self-hate, whatever. Someone right now listening to this is got someone that just came into their life, or an opportunity that they're figuring out a way to get out of because they believe. So those little things early on, before you get to the catastrophe type situations of divorce and getting, like these major life things that were in your control if you'd have just asked for help. There's little things along the way, like the self-sabotaging behavior. I mean, we don't have enough time to go through all, but there's one right there. And usually that's tied to One, a belief system
Mhm.
that you believe that's a lie. I'm not worthy. My dad, this is an example. My dad wasn't there. He walked out on our family. So that means I'm not worthy. And the person's in their 50s. Hold on. The person's in their 50s and they still believe that. And you've been doing that for 15 years and your wife's been begging you. Okay. Those are the road signs along the way, Tony.
I know, and the thing about it is that you talk about divorce specifically, but actually, you know, we mentioned grief last week as well, but really, it's not just divorce, is it? It's or grief in a relationship. It can be from the workplace that you've been in for the last 10 or 20 years, or if you move to a different area and you know you've got a whole new circle of friends, there is a grieving process. There is still a divorce process as such, you know. So for anyone that's listening, really, it's not just necessarily in a relationship, it's that whole process of change, because what you went through when things came crashing at 40, Michael, is you went through a process of change where a number of things were changing all at once.
That's right.
Yeah.
And just remember, life changes, even if it's not just having that discipline of opening up to a journal, a person you trust, ideally someone who's unbiased and wants the best in you. It's not that person that tells you everything you want to hear. Yeah, you know, goes to the water cooler with you, but someone who listens to you for 30 minutes is I got one thing to tell you, Tony, you know, and they drop the truth on you. You're feeling sorry. You know, I love you, but you're feeling sorry. You need that person in your life.
Okay.
I didn't have that person. And those people that tried to come in my life, I cut them out because I didn't trust men. I didn't trust men. Why did I not trust men? Because the one guy that I should have trusted the most broke trust early on in life.
Yeah, that's
right.
right.
And I never connected. And I wasn't angry at him, but I just never connected.
That's right. Yeah.
That thing.
That's right. And that's how it works. Yeah. Okay, so hopefully there was something in there for all of you that were joining us today. And yeah, maybe we need to continue this discussion, Michael. And so we'll be picking this back up next week. Thank you so much, everyone that has been joining us. But you heard Michael, reach out, ask for help. You know, it could be, you know, get some therapy if you need therapy. But it's not just about a relationship divorce. It's about, you know, in the workplace as well, or friendships and peer groups too. Would you say, Michael? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in therapy, just one last thing, like go get therapy. I mean, therapy's like dating. Therapy's like dating. Finding the right therapist is tough. There are terrific mental health professionals in this world. And then some people are just not a fit for you. Don't give up on that. I say the dating thing because it takes a while. They all have theoretically the same education, but it's the vibe and how you feel when you start to open up. And that's why coaches are great too, to go alongside with therapists, because sometimes they offer something that therapists can't do or won't, better yet, won't do. So if you've gone to, I tried it and then just keep going, because these kind of things we're talking about, they're progressive. Yeah. They don't get better.
And you need to understand what that link is as well. So, and that's really important. So thank you so much there, Michael. Some really key messages there. You never know, you might be back here next week. So I'm going to talk to you just off camera, but hopefully you got something from that. And I just want to say thank you to Rachel, Melody. Who else have we got? Trevor, Marcia, Matthew, Azra. Quite a few of you contribute in your comments there. Do reach out outside of this live. And I just want to say thank you so much for joining. And thank you so much, Michael. Some really key messages there. And thank you for taking us on the journey. And hopefully we can share some more learning next week right here on the Tony McClelland Show. And that's it for now. Bye for now. Thank you. Thank you for spending time with me and my guest today on Critical Reflections with Your Critical Friend. Today, you got just a very, very small sprinkling of Tony's fairy dust. But if you'd like more, then do reach out. For speaking or hosting, it's TonyMcClelland.com. For social impact, social justice, or social mobility, check out our work at FirstLifeGroup.com. I look forward to hearing from you. In the meantime, feel encouraged, be inspired, be empowered, and make a difference. Bye for now.